Welcome to All Around Britain, the show that celebrates wonderful people and places across the UK. This week we're in Birmingham, experiencing the city in a way you may not have seen before. Now, as you can see, Alex isn't with me this week because he's feeling under the weather, but we wish him well and he'll be back next week. And of course, we'll also have all those feel-good stories to brighten up your Sunday. So where are we heading? All around Britain.
Coming up, the former paratrooper who's found love and a four-legged friend while walking for a charity around the UK's coastline.
Being outside hasn't just helped me to feel better about myself. I feel amazing because it's that connection that you have with nature and what it brings.
Celebrating a hidden heroine, how Wales's first ever black head teacher has been commemorated in Cardiff.
Her determination and her willingness to keep going in spite of adversity stands as a really good example for everybody.
A well-being walk on the wild side, the alpacas that have swapped South America for Lincolnshire to help people make the most of the great outdoors.
We have to be very calm, very relaxed around them, so because of their nature, it makes us have to behave in a certain way.
All that to come, but first we're at Centenary Square and this is the iconic Library of Birmingham. It's the largest regional public library in the whole of Europe and it's visited by nearly 2.5 million people a year.
Opened in 2013 by human rights activist Malala Yousafzai, the Library of Birmingham took 3 years to build and cost £86 million. As a flagship building for the city's redevelopment, it sits alongside the Repertory Theatre, the Symphony Concert Hall and a huge clock that's counting down the days until the city hosts the 2022 Commonwealth Games. Inside, its 35,000 square metres of public space is home to internationally important collections of archives, photography and rare books. With a population of more than 1.3 million, Birmingham is the second largest city in the UK. The famous Bullring shopping centre has been a trade space for markets since the 12th century, and its famous Balti Triangle has some of the oldest curry houses in Britain. Birmingham is also famous for its industrial history and has more canals than Venice. And later in the programme, I'll experience more of what the city has to offer by boat.
Quite relaxing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really relaxing. Yeah.
I'll also be heading to Bourneville, the chocolate box village created for a generation of Cadbury workers.
I can't wait. But first, let's take our first trip around Britain to meet the former paratrooper from Swansea who's on a charity walk around the country's coastline. Natalie Gray went to meet him in North Norfolk.
Chris Lewis has come a very long way, not just in miles, about 14,000 to date, but also personally. The former paratrooper found himself living on the streets after leaving the army. Now he's walking the entire coastline of the UK to raise funds for the military charity SAPA, who helped get him back on his feet. By his side, the former working dog Jet and the girl from Bury St Edmunds he met on the way.
So I met my dog Jet about 10 months into the journey on the west coast of Scotland, and I met Kate on the northeast coast of Scotland about 3.5 years in. We just met, fell for each other, and the rest was history. She packed everything up and said, "I'm coming with you," and I'm glad she did.
I was up in the Highlands just wild camping on my own, doing my own adventure, and I happened to stumble across this bloke at the bottom of the Wallago Steps on the northeast tip of Scotland. Brought down all of my stuff and said, "Do you mind if I camp next to you?" 2 months later, I'd packed everything in and decided to join the walk full time.
When Chris left Swansea in August 2017, he had no idea how hard it would be. He nearly starved, he hurt his ankle and had to battle storms, freezing temperatures and fierce heat.
The first 6 months it was a real struggle, I lost a lot of weight, I wasn't able to eat, I couldn't afford it. I left with a tenner and 2 days worth of rations. So it was a very difficult 6 months to start with. I left a very depressed man, I wasn't in a good place. Being outside hasn't just helped me to, feel better about myself. I feel amazing because it's that connection that you have with nature and what it brings.
These days, Chris is something of a celebrity. He's overwhelmed by the kindness of strangers who've provided shelter, food and warm clothing. And after 4 years and 2 months on the road, this is quite a marathon.
Look out for Chris and Kate as they continue their incredible journey through Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex. Another 10 months to go before they reach the finishing line in Swansea.
4.5 years, I suppose, is quite a long time, so another 10 months isn't going to hurt.
Chris began his journey a little broken and alone, but a twist of fate, COVID scuppering Kate's foreign travel plans, meant he found love. And for them, the adventure's just beginning.
Isn't it amazing how life can change for the better when you really give things a go? Well done, Chris. Now, the Library of Birmingham attracts millions of visitors every year, but people don't just come here for the books.
I'm heading inside to meet tour guide Gary Stewart and find out what makes this library so special.
This building was opened in 2013. Amazing space, 10 floors. And this is Birmingham's public library. Within this site, you can actually find books, manuscripts, maps, old documentaries, archives. I think the archives add up to about 30 miles if you were to put all the items out.
Goodness me, 30 miles of books. And do they store everything here?
No, not everything is actually stored here. There's also another storage depot as well.
Okay.
So this is just literally half of the city's objects.
And Gary, just looking around this beautiful library, I love the fact that it's so modern and yet it holds such rich history. Do you think that was part of its appeal in attracting new visitors?
Some people come here just to sit here in the warmth. Some people come to study. As you look around, you'll see there are plenty of students here doing research. Yeah. Archives, some people come to look at their family histories and trees as well. The city of Birmingham actually comes here and uses the space. It is their library, it is a public space.
So where are you showing me today?
I'm going to take you next to the Shakespeare Room.
OK, so, lead the way.
After you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as you can see, the city skyline from here looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's lots going on.
The 9th floor of the library is home to one of the largest and most significant Shakespeare collections in the world.
Gary, this room is wonderful. It's like we've been transported to a different time.
Well, you know, we actually have. You know, this room was actually created in 1882. And if you look around, you can see like the architecture of it and the carpentry as well. Yeah. So it is an amazing building.
I'm just looking at all the different details. I mean, if you love Shakespeare, you'd be in your element here. Well,
you know, it's amazing that this project and the manuscripts that are here are from the Bard himself, and we're just 45 minutes away from the RSC Theatre in Stratford, but here, copies of his actual books and writing.
It's extraordinary, and honestly, it's the last thing I thought we were going to find at the top of Birmingham Library. It really
Absolutely,
is.
And you know, it is a real jewel in the library as well. Where better for it to be placed than in, you know, almost like the piece de resistance of the building.
And this collection was almost lost at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's been situated in 2 previous libraries before this, going right the way back to 1882. And in one of those previous incarnations, it was almost lost to fire, the whole collection.
I know.
So it's really more, you can see how important it is to the city now.
But as if the Shakespeare Room isn't impressive enough, this library even comes with its own secret garden on the roof.
Gary, it's lovely. This is such a hidden gem. Can anyone come here?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who uses the building, you just come out as we have today. So this was part of the school's project. They teach children how to grow their own herbs, vegetables as well.
I love that.
Yeah. So as you can see, the smell up here as well is amazing from these.
Fantastic. I just love the fact that this is in the middle of Birmingham, on top of a library, and you could just easily pass it and not know it's here. Well, it really is incredible here, and it's time now for another trip around Britain, and from one secret garden to another well-kept secret in the Isle of Man. Here's Joshua Stokes with more.
Tucked away in the north of the Isle of Man, you'll find large stretches of nature reserves, but under the trees lie one of the island's hidden treasures, the chance to see a wild wallaby.
Hi John.
What am I?
We're going to see some wallabies today, hopefully.
We're going to see wallabies.
John has been walking these paths for years, and today he's taking us to one of the wallaby hotspots.
So how likely is it that we're going to see some wallabies today, John?
Well, I've said to people, you can come out here for 10 times to see loads of wallabies, and you come out at 11th time you won't see any. The trick is to walk slowly and just keep your eye on either side, and next thing you know, you can spot them, and then you can keep your eye on them.
And luckily for us, it wasn't long before we found exactly what we came for.
There's one, just in sort of the bushes there.
And they don't necessarily mind if they're out in the open here or undercover in those kind of areas. It can vary.
Yeah. If anything comes, not that they've got many predators there, they can be away.
And they move quickly, don't they?
Oh, aye.
Just a short walk back under the trees, and it didn't take long to realise they were the ones spotting us.
She's picking at the leaves there now. In the winter time, they'll eat the bark. You'll find if there's been a tree blew down in a storm, it'll be grazed. All the bark will be off. The small branches are all gone. You know, up to wallaby height.
Some experts say they're living on similar diets to deer, an animal the Isle of Man doesn't have, taking away any competition. But it's a sight John never gets tired of seeing.
I love to see the wallabies. I get a special feeling coming out here. You know, it's just a wonderful place.
How many wallabies do you think there are in the north of the Isle of Man?
If you ask me, I'll say there's hundreds. And the way you hear people talk, and I think they've spread around the Isle of Man. They're in the Curragh here because it's a difficult terrain for people to say chase them, and nobody bothers them here.
And they now effectively are native to the Isle of Man because they've been here so long.
Yes, yeah. There've been so many generations grown here that you probably say that they're, you know, indigenous.
Wallabies have been roaming the island for over 50 years, but this was no natural miracle. It all started following a breakout at the local wildlife park.
Most of the population is kind of centred around where the wildlife park is. It's great habitat for them. So yeah, I think they almost certainly have come from the wildlife park. We did find one report in the newspaper here in 1966, I think it was, of a reported wallaby on the run. So that would be the first time. So that was only a year after the park opened. So yeah, some people don't believe you and you say, no, really, there is quite a sizable population now.
Nothing pleases me more than to take a family, a group of people out and show them around, and they're coming away, you know, in raptures. What a fantastic place.
An experience John hopes will continue, giving more people the chance to see one of the island's best kept secrets.
Amazing. And who knew wallabies in the Isle of Man? Right, time now for a quick break.
Coming up, I explore some of Birmingham's most famous sites by canal boat.
Ozzy Osbourne, Birmingham legend.
Yes.
It's named after him.
Plus, meet the Shropshire cyclist who's on the road to top-level success.
Welcome back to All Around Britain and to Birmingham. Soon I'll take a tour of this stunning city from its waterways. But first we're off to Shropshire, where Steve Clamp's been to meet an aspiring elite cyclist who's backed by a Paralympic legend.
Visit the beautiful Shropshire Hills and you might catch a glimpse of Gwyneth Parry. She's 19 and until last year her main focus was running, but an injury led to her switching from 2 feet to 2 wheels. And she soon started setting a remarkable pace. It was then suggested she apply for the Skoda Cycling Academy, which is headed up by Dame Sarah Story. More than 100 top amateurs applied. Gwyneth was one of only 4 to be signed up.
I didn't expect to even get into the selection day, so I was made up to go there, and then when I found out I was in, I couldn't believe it.
Technique, nutrition and training styles will all be covered by the Academy over the 3 years. But there is one area that could be even more beneficial to Gwyneth.
I think something I've always struggled with is like not believing in myself, but I think the cycling academy also helps with that, getting you to believe that you're good enough to try to take it to the next level.
One person who has no problems believing in her is her father, Gareth, a vet by trade, but a keen amateur cyclist in his own right.
I'm incredibly proud. I'm just really pleased for her. She's always worked. She's so hard at her sport, committed, trains incredibly hard, and since she started the cycle training, she trains 6 days a week, puts in incredible hours and incredible miles, and she's just taken to it as a natural. And yeah, I couldn't be prouder of her, really couldn't.
So what about the academy? Well, it's headed up by Dame Sarah Story. This summer she set a new record, picking up her 17th Paralympic gold medal. And she's already back on her bike with no plans to stop soon. She told me she feels the academy is vital in giving women more support in the cycling world.
We don't have an under-23 section in racing and cycling. It's there for the men, but it isn't there for the women. So there are some opportunities, but generally they tend to find they're racing in a senior peloton. So that's under 16 straight to over 23. It's a huge, huge jump. So what we wanted to do was set up a kind of interim opportunity that nurtures riders to be able to make that jump in their own time. Gwyneth has got a real competitive edge. She's really keen to kind of fast track and improve herself on a bike and to bring that competitive edge from running into cycling. So it's really exciting, and she's got that ambition that we're looking for as well.
Back to the hills, and having been introduced to the sport by her dad, I had to ask a difficult question.
Do you keep up with your dad now? Do you beat your dad? Where are we at there?
Well, I do tend to beat him, but
Did he take that well?
Not really.
I'm sure Parry Sr. will get over that as he watches his daughter continue her rise towards the top.
You've got a higher power, and you need someone. I wanna know.
I predict big things for Gwyneth. Now, back to our tour of Birmingham, and here comes our ride. Arriving on the Frederick is Kath Hubbard, who has worked on the city's famous waterways for 3 years. I'm heading on board to find out more about the crucial role the canals played in the development of Birmingham and the Black Country. Oh, this is nice.
Here.
Okay, how do we get on here?
It is easier if you go backward.
Okay.
Well done.
Hi. Oh, it's lovely. Quite relaxing, isn't it?
Yes, really relaxing, yeah.
So where are we heading now then?
So we're coming under the Broad Street Tunnel.
Right.
And then we're into Gas Street then.
Okay, and that's more built up, there's lots more going on there.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're approaching the Black Sabbath Bridge.
Yes.
What's the history behind that?
So Ozzy Osbourne, Birmingham legend.
Yes.
It's named after him, tribute to him. Lots of people come and take photographs of it, fans,
Aww.
Black Sabbath fans, yeah.
That's lovely. So Kath, where are we now?
So this is Gas Street Basin. This is where historically in the 1800s they transported goods, so coal, iron, heavy goods through the city.
And a little birdie tells me that Birmingham has more miles of canals than Venice. Is that true?
There are 35 miles of canal in Birmingham, so I believe that is actually more than Venice.
Goodness me. And how do the canals play a part in the economy today?
They bring a lot of tourists to this area. It thrives over weekend, really busy. There's water-based businesses like this one that I run here from Gas Street, a party boat, so we get lots of large groups of people coming at the weekend.
Oh, I bet, like hen parties and birthdays.
It is, yeah, you name it, we've had parties on here.
Oh, well, I must say, I do come to Birmingham quite a bit because I've got family that live in Kings Heath. But it is really nice to see the city from a different perspective.
It's lovely, isn't it? It's actually really pretty.
My kids will love this, we'll have to come back.
Yeah, definitely.
So where are we off to now then?
We're off down towards the mailbox now.
Okay, fantastic. Lead the way. While we continue to explore, let's head to Cardiff, where Alexandra Hartley's been finding out about a special commemoration to an inspirational woman.
This is Betty Campbell, the first black head teacher in Wales. She was a pioneer for change who championed equality and diversity.
3, 2, 1, go!
And now she's been honoured with a statue in the heart of Cardiff. The first ever statue of a real-life woman in a public place in Wales.
She was far ahead of her time. She set the scene for conversations that we're having now 40, 50 years ago. And I think her determination and her willingness to keep going in spite of adversity stands as a really good example for everybody.
There is my mum in all her glory. So it's absolutely amazing. How would you describe her? Very passionate, very determined, very inspirational, and never one to give up.
For the sculptor, this has been a labour of love over 3 years, but there is a story in every detail.
The whole concept really is based on that of a mother tree or a hub tree within a woodland or a forest. And so she's kind of the mother tree, and all these children around her are kind of her saplings. They're all children from Tiger Bay, and she's sheltering them and protecting them.
And at Mount Stewart Primary School, where she once worked, she continues to inspire.
I feel like happy that Betty Campbell did what she wants to do, and it made me more confident to be what I want to be when I'm older. Now there's a statue, people are going to be like, okay, I want to follow after my dreams because she did it, I can do it myself.
And that is true for Becky, who was once one of Betty's students and now teaches in the same school.
Betty was a force of nature. She wasn't someone that you could say no to, but it was always on behalf of the community and the good of others. She just made the children feel that they could achieve anything and go on to be anything they wanted to be in life.
Of course, a tribute to women in Wales is long overdue, and campaigners hope it will spark the change needed for more to be recognised in this way.
Women are now beginning to be recognised for their contributions, and there are some amazing women out there who would have their say, who would promote other women, and I'm so pleased that this statue is a beacon of hope and determination and equality.
And so Betty Campbell is now immortalised in bronze, but this is so much more than just a statue. It is a visible example to future generations, especially girls, that proves through hard work, self-belief, and by pushing boundaries, anything is possible.
A new landmark in Wales's capital, celebrating a life that continues to inspire so many.
What a legacy, and it's great to see Betty Campbell getting that recognition. OK, time for a break, but there's still plenty more to come.
I'll continue my tour of Birmingham by boat. And meet the Cumbrian rock climber who scaled new heights.
You're aware that if you make a mistake in this situation, it could have very bad consequences, but you're confident enough in your own ability to be pretty sure that that won't happen.
Welcome back to the show that celebrates stunning scenery and amazing people. Still to come this Sunday.
The Four-Legged Friends helping people enjoy the healing power of nature.
Working with animals is really good and I find it really relaxing.
I'm steering a canal boat!
And we continue our cruise down the Birmingham Canal network to Bourneville.
But now, have you ever dreamt of building your own extension or even your own home? Well, in Salisbury, an entire street has been hand-built by its residents. Richard Slee's been to find out more.
On the edge of Bishopsdown in Salisbury is the crescent of Anderson Road. 65 years ago, it looked like this, the site of a pioneering self-build project. Over the next 2 years, 17 homes were constructed by a group of novice builders who were going to live in them. And Stan Gordon is the last remaining original resident. This bench, placed on the hill behind Anderson Road, is honouring Stan for the role he played in building the road they live in. When you sit here and you look back at all the years you've been here and what you achieved, what goes through your mind?
Oh, exactly that. What an achievement. I'm quite proud of what we did. Indeed I am.
There is nothing here now to indicate that this was an extraordinary undertaking. 17 families building their own homes from scratch, doing nearly everything themselves, learning on the job. Among the families there were some tradesmen, but most had to go to night school to learn their skills, while still holding down a day job. There was a can-do mentality amongst the group.
I didn't know anything about building, but I am proud to say I took to it like a duck to water, and I loved it. After the scheme was finished, I became a floor layer. And of course we didn't know when we'd finish. We had no finishing date. We just got our heads down and got on with it.
At the start of the build, lots were drawn to decide who would move into each home as it was finished. But once you were in, you were still committed to help build the rest of the houses. The project is documented in a recently published book. Stan, seen here working on a roof, drew lot 11, so it was some time before he could move into his new home. And here we see your house being built. Did that make a difference to how you worked on a building?
No, but I managed to do a bit extra work in my own time.
It had to be in your own time?
Oh yes. For instance, I left a hole in the wall in the bathroom. Now got a recessed shaving cabinet.
There's the advertisement in the Salisbury Journal. August the 6th, 1954.
Clive and Janet Bishop also feature in the book. They moved away after raising a family, but remember the community spirit.
That's our house.
17 men working together, and I've never ever heard a crossword. It was fantastic.
Oh, the curtains are up, so he must have been already in when they took the photograph.
But Clive and Janet doubt that something like this will ever be repeated.
I can't see it happening, can't I? Can you, dear?
No, I can't, because as I say, there's so much red tape now. I mean, Clive could do things on a roof off of a ladder, which wouldn't be allowed nowadays.
The house and garden are now sadly a bit much for Stan, so he's moving on. It's the end of an era of a once very special community.
Just extraordinary, and a true tale of community spirit. Now here in Birmingham, we're making our way along the city's famous canals and heading to another well-known landmark, the village of Bourneville.
Leading us there is skipper Chris Johnson, and I'm going to offer a helping hand.
So basically, to steer the canal boat, I need to push the lever the opposite direction to where I want the boat to go.
Right to go left and left to go right.
Right.
Okay, push in the middle.
Yep. This is so cool. I'm steering a canal boat. So tell me about boating, because you've been doing this for many years, haven't you?
I started playing with boats 62 years ago.
62 years on the waterways?
I went to an adventure playground in Sparkbrook.
Really?
And the guy that was running it bought a boat. So we said, does anyone want to come to the boat?
Right.
And I said, me. And I'm still here.
Oh, I love that. So just meeting him inspired you to get into boating?
He gave me the opportunity and I found out that I liked it.
Fantastic. And I hear that you actually live on a boat, is that right?
I do, yes.
What's it like living on a boat?
I would personally say better than living in a house.
And why is that?
Easier to keep warm, easier to keep clean.
Fantastic. And how am I doing?
You're doing okay at the moment. Because it's your first time on the boat, you need to get the feel of the rudder.
Yeah, we'll do it together.
And that's what you're doing.
There's too much pressure.
Now let it come to
Help!
me.
Send for help! And what's your favourite route out of all of the canal routes that you've done?
In the Midlands, the Worcester Birmingham, from Birmingham to Worcester.
Right. And in the whole of the country?
It's got to be the River Thames.
The River Thames? Oh, I thought you were going to say the Five Rise Locks in Yorkshire.
No, I haven't been there yet.
Ah, it's on your to-do list.
And so is the Llangotton. That's when I get my new boat, the Llangotton is the first place I'm going.
Not bad for my first time steering a canal boat. Right, it's time for our next trip around Britain. Bob Cruz has been to meet a cider maker in Devon who's taking part in a groundbreaking project identifying ancient apples.
The classic West Country orchard is a bit of a jumble of trees. Some of them have fallen over, but they're still producing apples. This is a throwback to a time when most farms in this area had their own orchard to make cider for the workers, for the locals, and to sell. The range of different varieties of apple they grew formed a living recipe for each unique cider.
In the old days, of course, you'd just pick on a rainy day.
Cider maker Barney Butterfield is taking part in a new scientific study to identify every tree using its DNA, to map the varieties that exist in our orchards, perhaps track down some long-forgotten apples, and even discover some hybrid trees that are one of a kind.
We may just find some absolutely stunning varieties that make ciders that haven't been drunk for centuries, because right now, there might be one tree here with an incredible pedigree. It's like Orchard's Got Talent, or, you know, somewhere in here there's the equivalent of Bob Dylan strumming away, waiting to be found, waiting to be given their moment back in the spotlight. And then once we know we've got something interesting, we can focus in on it. We can do trial blends and trial fermentations, and actually we're going to be able to taste back in time.
Back at his cider mill in Crediton, the press barely stops at this time of year, blending sweet, sharp and bitter juices, balancing the acidity and tannin levels to create something delicious. Each apple variety, and there are thousands of them, has its own unique characteristics. The work they're doing at Bristol University to genetically fingerprint thousands of trees will help to identify and preserve ancient varieties.
We expected to find that most of the trees in the orchard were identical, and all common cider varieties of, let's say, the early 20th century. And when we got the fingerprinting results back, surprised us in so much as there were lots of unique varieties in those orchards, and varieties that we'd never seen before, and we were quite stunned. What this is strongly indicating is that there is considerably more diversity in older orchards than we thought possible.
And it really does herald a new age of exploration in cider, and hopefully a bit of focus on a great local drink produced ethically and environmentally, and it's on our doorstep. It doesn't have to go in a tanker from another hemisphere. It's already here, waiting to be enjoyed. So it's a real double win, I think.
The good news is that if they find something really special, even if it's just one tree, they can take grafts of wood and create whole orchards of it, ensuring its survival for centuries to come.
Fascinating, and good luck to them. Right, time now for a quick break.
When we come back, I'll be ringing the bells in Bourneville.
I like that one.
As we explore the village with a rich and chocolatey history. And find out how these alpacas in Lincolnshire are helping people with their well-being.
welcome back to All Around Britain and to Birmingham, where we're taking in the sights of the city's famous canals. Soon we'll be heading into the village of Bournville, but first we're off to the Lake District, where Tim Backshole's been to meet the rock climber who's just completed a monumental feat.
High above Derwentwater is the rock face known as Little Chamonix. This is just one of the climbs that Anna Taylor tackled on her recent trip around Britain. She set out to complete all 83 routes listed in a well-known climbing guide from the 1970s called Classic Rock.
Well, obviously over the past couple of years with COVID, the world's kind of been shut down, and it definitely wasn't the time to start planning any big international climbing trips. But I wanted something sort of expedition style. And to do that in the UK, there aren't any particularly remote areas you can go to or particularly big mountains compared to the rest of the world. So I found this guidebook, Classic Rock, which has got 83 of the most classic climbs of a certain grade in the UK.
On 68 of those ascents, she went solo climbing, that is, without the use of any ropes or protection, as was the case when we filmed her. For anyone without the necessary experience, it would be extremely risky. But Anna has been climbing since she was 10 and is very used to this type of challenge.
In some ways, I mean, if you get the weather for it, it's actually a lot easier because you're not having to carry any heavy climbing equipment, and you're an awful lot quicker on your own because you're not having to put in gear or belay anybody else up. But obviously when the weather changes and the climbs get a bit harder, it does become a lot more serious. And certainly in Scotland, the solo element made the whole thing a lot more challenging. I definitely think of the dangers. It's always in the back of my mind, and you've got to be realistic about what can happen in these situations. I don't think it's right to try and kid yourself that you're safe when you're not. But I think it's very similar to sort of driving or scrambling or maybe something like skiing. You know, it's you're aware that if you make a mistake in this situation, it could have very bad consequences, but you're confident enough in your own ability to be pretty sure that that won't happen.
The challenge was made tougher by the fact that she cycled from one climb to the next, starting in Cornwall and travelling through Wales, the Peak District and the Lake District, before ending in Scotland. Anna is believed to be the first person to do these 83 ascents while cycling between them all as well, carrying her own equipment. It's taken her 2 months, and during that time she's climbed 33,000 feet and cycled 1,500 miles.
I think the toughest parts were probably the Scottish climbs. They get a lot bigger, a lot more remote, and less frequently climbed, so you've got more loose rock to deal with. It's sometimes harder to find where the routes actually go. There's a particular climb called the Chasm in Glencoe that it's a big gully, so when it rains a lot, which it had been doing, it turns into a bit of a watercourse. And climbing the last 2 pitches of that with what was essentially a waterfall running down from above was pretty difficult.
Anna is hoping to get back to expeditions abroad before long, but for now she's pleased to have completed the best that Britain has to offer.
Wow, well done, Anna. Now, remember, Anna is an expert, so if you fancy climbing, do seek professional guidance first. Now, we've just arrived in the village of Bournville, and I'm just about to meet someone who loves chocolate even more than me.
Known as a garden suburb of Birmingham, Bournville lies 4 miles southwest of the city. After taking over their father's business in 1861, George and Richard Cadbury decided to move their chocolate factory out of the city into an area where they could expand. It was in 1878 the perfect spot was found. 14 acres of land with a meadow, cottage and stream and good canal and railway links for deliveries. The new village was later massively expanded by another 120 acres to build more housing for factory workers. To find out more, I'm meeting Duncan Cadbury, a distant cousin of the 2 brothers who brought Bournville to life.
Duncan, it's lovely to meet you.
And you. I've been looking forward to it.
Now, I hear with a surname like Cadbury, you must have a connection to this village. Tell me about that.
Goes back a long way. My great-great-grandfather, Benjamin Cadbury, had a shop next door to John Cadbury, his brother.
Right.
And John had 2 sons, one Richard, one George. So the relationship is George is my great-great-grandfather's nephew.
Mr. Cadbury, what a legacy. Goodness me.
I live with it. I live with it.
And tell me about the village.
George Cadbury used to live in the centre of Birmingham. And for a number of years he used to teach in a Sunday school there, young people, and he discovered when he visited their homes that they lived in the slums of Birmingham, appalling living conditions, no running water, no proper drainage, no light. And he felt that he had to do something to improve their way of living. So he decided to move his factory, which was already established, 5 miles out of Birmingham to Bourneville, and that's why we're here now. In the old days, you worked here, you lived here, you played here, because this really was a whole life for folk. So to George and his brother, and from then on, very important, it made this a place where people wanted to live.
I love that story. And so how did the name Bourneville come about?
The River Bourne goes actually right through where we are now, and at that time everything was French, so you had Ville.
Right.
With the French connection, so he called it Bourneville or Bourneville.
And I understand that the Cadbury brothers were Quakers. How did that impact village life here?
I think it impacted it, as you can see from the buildings around us, that they were very keen to make sure that there was a whole variety of things. Leisure was very important. So in the village, you've got playing fields. 10% of Bourneville is open space. There are shops. There are no pubs in Bourneville.
Oh, I noticed there wasn't a pub.
Yes, it goes back to when they were in the city centre and alcohol was a real problem. Gin and everything else was a real problem. And in the area now, well, there was a joke actually that round Bourneville, because there are no pubs in Bourneville, all the big pubs around the village, and if people got drunk, by the time they'd walked home, they were sober.
Because they had to travel so far.
But it was quite seriously something that was very important to George, that it remained a safe place for people to go up and live.
A school was founded here in 1906 for the children of the factory workers. It was a personal gift from George Cadbury to celebrate the completion of the village.
Tell us about these bells, because they're very special, aren't they?
They're very unusual in this country. It's called a carillon, and from the 15th century in Europe, they had carillons in a lot of places. But George, when he was in Bruges, heard a carillon playing, and he thought, I've got to have that for Bourneville. The heaviest bell weighs 3.5 tons. This one now has 48 bells in it, so you've got that range, a bit like a piano. And it's played by hitting pegs, which then connect straight up to the bell above to make that sound. And it chimes every hour and on the quarters. And on Saturdays, they do a concert on Saturday mornings. One of the loveliest things is on Christmas Eve, a whole lot of the community are down on the green and they sing carols accompanied by the carillon.
Oh, I bet that's magical.
Lovely. And the Christmas tree is lit up. So it becomes very much part of Bourneville at Christmas, and the carillon is key to that.
Oh, fantastic. And will I get to ring the bells of Bourneville today?
I think we've got to let you have a go at that.
Fantastic. I like that one. I think it's safe to say I'm a beginner. Right, it's time for our final trip around Britain. Jonathan Brown's been to Beesby in Lincolnshire to find out how alpacas are helping with people's well-being.
A walk on the wild side in a world of your own. This is a well-being wander with a difference, or should I say, 5. These alpacas have swapped South America for the east coast of Lincolnshire, and they're spreading calm with every step.
Working with animals, it's really good, and I find it really relaxing. So it's nice to have this experience.
They're just so inquisitive, and with them being nervous as well, you kind of warm to them because you want to just keep them safe.
It's supposed to be the soft fur and calming nature of these gentle creatures that allows people to simply detach from the stresses and strains of daily life. And it's that that's led people from all over the country to flock to this quaint corner of the Lincolnshire countryside.
They tend to walk at the pace that they graze at, so I'll demonstrate like this. And I'm not exaggerating.
The animals strolled into Sam's life 4 years ago. A former primary school teacher, she decided to offer others the well-being boost she benefited from by taking llamas and alpacas on tours of schools and care homes, as well as guided therapy walks.
It's all on their terms. Because they are prey animals, they're kind of frightened of quite a lot of stuff. Their instinct is to run away from things, so we have to be very calm, very gentle, very relaxed around them. So because of their nature, it makes us have to behave in a certain way.
After the first lockdown delayed the centre's opening last year, Sam's alpacas are now very much in demand. Among those to regularly drop in is Amanda. She was struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety before four-legged therapy ambled by.
While I was helping with the alpacas, it just went away.
Where do you think you'd be if you hadn't have come across the alpacas?
I probably would have still been in long-term therapy and probably ended up on medication or something like that, whereas I don't need that now. Whenever you feel a bit down or whatever, you just go into the field, spend a little bit of time with them, and it all just goes away because you don't think of anything else when you're with them. They definitely saved my life.
Pace may be leisurely and the stops for a bite to eat may be plentiful. Though people here say slowly but surely these animals are giving people the perspective they need to take time for themselves.
Oh, amazing, and lovely to see how the animals are helping people with their mental health. Well, that's it for this week's All Around Britain and our canal tour of some of Birmingham's most famous sites. Next week we'll be in Edinburgh for Halloween, plus we'll also have all those uplifting stories from across the UK. But for now, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.